Good evening. Cheers. Water with bubbles. One drink this evening. Slow and low, rock and rye. Where we left off. How often does chance like that come around? To jangle the bastards right down to the core of their spleens. Oh, I'm sorry. Part 5. To jangle the bastards right down to the core of their spleens. Old elephants limp off to the hills to die. Old Americans go out to the highway and drive themselves to death with huge cars. But our trip was different. It was a classic affirmation of everything right and true and decent in the national character. It was a gross physical salute to the fantastic possibilities of life in this country, but only for those with true grit. And we were chock full of that. My attorney understood this concept despite his racial handicap, but our hitchhiker was not an easy person to reach. He said he understood. But I could see in his eyes that he didn't. He was lying to me. The car suddenly veered off the road and we came to a sliding halt in the gravel. I was hurled against the dashboard. My attorney was slumped over the wheel. "What's wrong?" I yelled. "We can't stop here." "This is bad country." My heart, he groaned. "Where's the medicine?" "Oh, yes," I said. "The medicine, yes, it's right here." I reached into the kit bag for the amyls. The kid seemed petrified. "Don't worry," I said. "This man has a bad heart, angina pectoris, but we have a cure for that. Yes, here they are." I picked 4 amyls out of the tin box and handed 2 of them to my attorney. He immediately cracked one under his nose, and I did likewise. He took a long snort and fell back in the seat, staring straight up at the sun. "Turn up the fucking music," he screamed. "My heart feels like an alligator." "Volume, clarity, bass." "We must have bass." He flailed his naked arms at the sky. "What's wrong with us? Are we goddamned old ladies?" I turned both the radio and the tape machine up full bore. "You scurvy shyster bastard," I said. "Watch your language. You're talking to a doctor of journalism." He was laughing out of control. "What the fuck are we doing out here in the desert?" he shouted. "Somebody call the police." "We need help." "Pay no attention to this swine," I said to the hitchhiker. "He can't handle the medicine. Actually, we're both doctors of journalism, and we're on our way to Las Vegas to cover the main story of our generation." And then I began laughing. My attorney hunched around to face the hitchhiker. "The truth is," he said, "we're going to Vegas to croak a skag baron named Savage Henry. I've known him for years, but he ripped us off. And you know what that means, right?" I wanted to shut him off, but we were both helpless with laughter. What the fuck were we doing out here in this desert when we both had bad hearts? "Savage Henry has cashed his check," my attorney snarled at the kid in the back seat. "We're going to rip his lungs out." "And eat them," I blurted. "That bastard won't get away with this. What's going on in this country when a scumsucker like that can get away with sandbagging a doctor of journalism?" Nobody answered. My attorney was cracking another amyl, and the kid was climbing out of the back seat, scrambling down the trunk lid. "Thanks for the ride," he yelled. "Thanks a lot. I like you guys. Don't worry about me." His feet hit the asphalt, and he started running back towards Baker, out in the middle of the desert. Not a tree in sight. "Wait a minute," I yelled. "Come back and get a beer." But apparently, he couldn't hear me. The music was very loud, and he was moving away from us at good speed. "Good riddance," said my attorney. "We had a real freak on our hands. That boy made me nervous. Did you see his eyes?" He was still laughing. "Jesus," he said. "This is good medicine." I opened the door and reeled around to the driver's side. "Move over," I said. "I'll drive. We have to get out of California before that kid finds a cop." "Shit, that'll be hours," said my attorney. "He's 100 miles from anywhere." "So are we," I said. "Let's turn around and drive back to the Polo Lounge," he said. "They'll never look for us there." I ignored him. "Open the tequila," I yelled as the windscreen took over. I stomped on the accelerator as we hurtled back onto the highway. Moments later, he leaned over with a map. "There's a place up ahead called Mezcal Springs," he said. As your attorney, I advise you to stop and take a swim." I shook my head. "It's absolutely imperative that we get to the Mint Hotel before the deadline for press registration," I said. "Otherwise, we might have to pay for our suite." He nodded. "But let's forget that bullshit. about the American dream, he said. The important thing is the great Samoan dream. He was rummaging around in the kit bag. I think it's about time to chew up a blotter, he said. That cheap mescaline wore off a long time ago, and I don't know if I can stand the smell of that goddamn ether any longer. I like it, I said. We should soak a towel with the stuff and then put it down on the floorboard by the accelerator, so the fumes will rise all the way to my face on the way to Vegas. He was turning the tape cassette over. The radio was screaming, "Power to the people, right on." John Lennon's political song. 10 years too late. The poor fool should have just stayed where he was, said my attorney. Punks like that just get in the way when they try to be serious. Speaking of serious, I said, I think it's about time to get into the ether and the cocaine. Forget ether, he said. Let's save it for soaking down the rug in the suite. But here's this. You're half of the sunshine blotter. Just chew it up like baseball gum. I took the blotter and ate it. My attorney was now fumbling with the salt shaker containing the cocaine, opening it, spilling it, then screaming and grabbing at the air as the fine white dust blew up and across the desert highway. A very expensive little twister rising from the great red shark. Oh, Jesus, he moaned. Did you see what God just did to us? God didn't do that, I shouted. You did it. You're a fucking narcotics agent. I was onto your stinking act from the start, you pig. You better be careful, he said, and suddenly he was waving a fat black 357 Magnum at me. One of those snub-nosed Colt Pythons with the beveled cylinder. Plenty of vultures out here, he said. They'll pick your bones clean before morning.